Welcome to Property Mama Adventures in Real Estate, episode 22. So glad and pleased that you're joining me today. I share all of the shenanigans that go on in the real estate agencies. I'm going to talk about one today, actually. I share all the shenanigans that goes on in the real estate industry. And there's a few. Let me tell you, I've been buying and selling real estate for almost 3 decades. If we have not met before, my name is Wendy Chamberlain and I am a buyer's advocate, buyer's agent here in Melbourne, Australia. And I am so pleased you're joining me for today's episode. There's always shenanigans aplenty. And so I was going to talk about a real estate agency today. So I had a client come to me. Now, they were not my client yet when this happened, but this feeds into the story that I wanted to share today. So a house came on the market, advertised it was going to auction. And so generally here in Melbourne, there is usually a 4-week auction campaign. Generally, the property is available for 3 weeks. There's 3 weeks of opens, and then the property is auctioned on the 4th weekend. Sometimes the campaigns are quicker than that, and as a general rule, the auctions take place on a Saturday. Some agencies do run auctions midweek. I guess it's kind of like their thing that they can differentiate themselves, and there's one particular agency brand that like to create an absolute fervor in a room, and they tend to do their auctions all on a Tuesday, and they'll have everybody in the one room and things get to fever pitch, and I think that is part of their strategy to do that. So they'll have 10-15 auctions all in a row, and it's in an evening, and they get all the buyers there into the room. And you sit there, and then you've got to wait and sit there while the first house auctions, the second house auctions, and the real estate agents work the room. They've got an auctioneer right at the front, and it gets to fever pitch in that room. So that's the whole strategy in itself, because auctions are extraordinarily emotional. And that's their strategy. But I'm not going to talk about that today. I am going to share about, so this, they're now a client. They weren't a client at that point. So a property that they saw came onto the market, and they went through one of the public opens right at the start of the campaign. They liked the property. Now, one of the things that often happens once a property is first put on the market is that the vendor, the seller, and also the real estate agent, they will say that they want to see what the market reckons it's worth. And so you'll see a property come on, you love the property, you want to buy the property, and you approach them about making an offer. And it's the first open, and they'll say, oh, we're not looking at offers yet because we're just seeing what the market says it's worth, etc. It's a strategy that they have. So this particular now client had seen this property, fallen in love with this property, and approached the real estate agent and said, look, we'd like to make an offer. And they made an offer. They made an offer in writing. They sent it as a text message to the real estate agent. So it's in writing. And the agent presented the offer to the vendor, and apparently the vendor dismissed it, saying, no, I want to go to auction, which is fine. That's what they're allowed to do. It's their property. They can do what they want with their property. So this was probably 3 weeks ago, because the auction's coming up this coming weekend. So there was an offer that they made, which was $20,000 above the guide price. And I've talked about guide prices on previous episodes of Property Mama. Guide prices are works of fiction. And I've also talked a lot about underquoting. So you can pop a previous episode into your ears to hear about all of the shenanigans that go along with price guides and underquoting, and why real estate agents do it, because there's a method to their madness. So the guide price that is on this property, it's underquoted, by the way. Shocker. The guide price is below what the property is worth, and the offer that this client made was above the guide price, as I said, and it's been dismissed. Now, under Victorian law, if an offer is made in writing, it must form the bottom of the guide price. A bunch of changes to the legislation came in, I think around 2 years ago now, where there are strict parameters around what a statement of information needs to look like. The statement of information is the guide price. So you can't do offers over X anymore. You can't do price X plus anymore. Certainly not here in Victoria. I think it's still a bit of the wild, wild west in other parts of Australia, and each country is going to have its own way that it allows real estate agents, realtors, to advertise properties for sale and in relation to the pricing. And I can tell you, one of these single things that is the bugbear of buyers is where there is fluidity in the truth, shall we say, around the prices of properties that are advertised. Certainly in Melbourne, in Victoria, and in Sydney, we're auction towns here. We love to auction properties. It's a strategy that real estate agents use. And I think one of the main reasons is because it's an unconditional sale. So under the hammer, you've bought the property and it's yours and you can't cool off. Whereas if you're buying under any other type of method, you do have parameters where you can cool off, you can change your mind. It is for a penalty. You have to pay a penalty to do it, as in it's going to cost you money. But in the whole grand scheme of things, if you're just about to buy a $1 million, $2 million house, and it's going to cost you a couple of thousand to get out of the deal because you don't want to proceed for whatever the reasons are, cold feet, whatever you've decided, found, then paying a few $1,000s to get out of the deal because it no longer suits you is something that you may wish to do. Under auction terms, you can't do that. So in Victoria, 3 days either side of an auction, you cannot cool off. So you can make offers, you can bid at auction, you can buy at auction. If a property doesn't sell at auction, you can negotiate and purchase afterwards. You can put terms on after an auction, but you can't cool. You can't cool off, which I think is one of the main reasons why it is so popular, certainly here, that they use that method of sale, because it is done and dusted. Once it's sold, and there's you've got a result. So they've made this offer. It's been rejected out of hand by the vendor, as is their right. However, the guide price should have been lifted. It wasn't. So that's another thing. So this was before my clients approached me. So a few weeks go by and I get approached by my client and about helping them purchase a home. We had recently helped their friends buy something off market, and they are sick of the hunt. They're sick of looking. They want help to buy a property. It's what we do. It's what we do. It's why people come to us, because we know what we do. We know what we're doing. I say it's not about just knowing which ducks you need to have lined up, because there's many ducks, there's many moving parts. You also got to know the order in which the ducks line up. And that's what we do. So the clients have come in and, can you help us buy a house? Absolutely. It's what we do. And so in a matter of like an afternoon, I made 3 calls and I found, I think, 7 or 8 off-market opportunities. And then they circled back around to this property that they said, look, we made this offer on a property. They said they're not accepting it. Can you help us with this one? And I went, sure, send me the details. Who did you speak to? Which agent did you speak to? And what was the conversation? What was said? So they shared that with me. So interesting things, number 1. The real estate agent that they spoke to about 3 weeks ago is no longer listed on that property, which is not unusual in itself, because agents do change between which properties they are marketing. It is unusual, though, for it to change through the auction campaign, because they haven't had the auction yet. So when they went out to look at this property at an open inspection, that was the real estate agent that greeted them at the door, took their details. That's who they spoke to. That's who they made the offer to. Now, when I look up that property, because it's online, it's going to auction, that real estate agent is not listed. So I'm like, okay. So I did a bit of a search around to find this real estate agent, because they gave me his name, first name only, and his mobile. So I searched around and I found him. Now, he wasn't listed anymore at that real estate agent office. I'm like, okay, interesting. So I thought, okay, I'll leave that. What I'm going to do is I will ring one of the agents that is listed on the property, because I wanted to find out what the buyer interest, because we're only a week out from the auction, what the buyer interest on the property has been, and have they had any offers. Now, I know they've had an offer because my client made an offer. So I wanted to speak to the agent that is now on the listing to see if he's going to tell me whether or not there's been this offer made, because I know 100% for a fact it has been made. Okay, so speak to the agent, lovely man, and he said there's been 2 verbal offers for the top of the guide price. Now, my client's offer was in writing and it was above the guide price. So I asked him a bunch of questions, just trying to ascertain what the interest is in the property, who's interested, where they're at, what's going on, and also, is your vendor looking at offers? Now, remember, when my now client, when they weren't a client, spoke to the agent, they put the offer in and it was knocked back with a different agent, but at the same agency. And he said, the agent, the current agent I'm speaking to, said, he said there's 2 verbals, top of the guide price, and yes, the vendor would look at offers. He'd be fine to look at them if it came in, today, tomorrow, but in a few more days when it's closer to the auction, he won't look at them. Well, I found that curious for a number of reasons. First of all, in my experience, it's funny because in my experience, vendors want you to be, if you're making an offer, they'll often take an offer within the 3 days of the cooling off of the auction. So within the 3 days before the auction where you can't cool off. So generally for a Saturday auction, the vendor, the agent will encourage offers to be on the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, because you can't cool off. You can make your offer as you otherwise would. Otherwise would. Otherwise, you're just going to be standing on the street on the Saturday and putting your hand up and bidding. Whereas you can get it all done and dusted beforehand, which I like to do for a number of reasons, which I'll share in a moment. So the agent's saying, if you can make an offer sort of today, tomorrow, then he will look at it. I went, that's interesting, because he previously wasn't looking. But I had explained this, as I said earlier, to my client, that when it's very early on in a campaign, we often do not get offers taken, because if they've not effectively sent the property to the market to test the price point in the market, which is what they're trying to do, because the market will quickly tell somebody what they think the property is worth. And oftentimes it's not what the vendor thinks it is. It's oftentimes less than what the vendor thinks it is. But vendors they always think their properties are worth more. They always think their property is worth more than the one down the street, because that's sold for this, but my property's better for X, Y, and Z reasons. And it's funny because they'll go, but I've done this and I've done that and I've included this and I've got double glazing and I've added this and this and this and all these bells and whistles, because they're living in there. And half the time the buyers don't care. The buyers don't care how much you have spent on all these bells and whistles that you've added to the property, because if they can't see it, for example, classic examples where you've entirely replumbed, rewired, restumping they do care about, because otherwise they're going to restump. But where you've done these things which are not necessarily in your face and visible, they are things that are needing to be done. They are expensive things. But when a buyer is coming in to buy your property, they're not necessarily caring or thinking about that. They care in so much as they're not going to have to pay for it, but they're just going to factor that in what that property is worth in the general market. It's not really going to get a premium for those things having been done against other homes that are also in good repair. So one of the reasons why I like to see if we can make offers, particularly and whether a vendor will accept an offer, particularly when a property is going to auction, is buyers are always coming and going in the market. So people, if you're looking for a house, you're going to start looking for a house when it suits you. One of the reasons why it might suit you is that you've got your finance approved, or you're ready to go, or something has happened that you go, right, it's time to start looking, it's time to move. If we've already made an offer on a property that is going to go to auction, so like I said, auction campaigns can often be 4 weeks. If you've got to wait 4 weeks for a property to run through its paces because the vendor's not going to sell it to you before the auction day, there is a chance, a risk that other buyers are going to come into the market and see that property, whereas 3 weeks ago they weren't ready. And we've had it happen to us where we have made offers on a property, the vendor said no, they want to go to auction, and that's their prerogative to do that. And we have turned up on the Saturday and we have started bidding, and there's been another buyer that's shown up and started bidding, and they only saw it on the Thursday. And then they've bid against us on the Saturday and they've outbid us. So if we'd actually been able to get an offer accepted by the vendor earlier in the campaign, that buyer wouldn't even be in the picture because they didn't even know about the property, hadn't seen it, wasn't on their radar. Because it happens sometimes with clients when they come on that we get properties that just appear on our radar straight away. I can have a client come on a Wednesday, Thursday, and we go to auction on the Saturday because a property that we may not have known about shows up on the radar. It might be in a different suburb they weren't considering, whatever it might be. And so it happens all the time. So it's one of the reasons why I like making offers. Second reason why I love to make offers, and I had this conversation with my clients yesterday about making an offer on this property, is because when a property is being auctioned and buyers are looking at a property, they've inspected it, they might have inspected it once or twice, sometimes 3 times. And so they're just kind of like trotting along, waiting for the auction to show up. And they'll go along on the Saturday. They're organising what they're doing. They're speaking to the people they need to speak to. And they know that on Saturday at 11 o'clock in the morning, they've got to show up because this property is going to be auctioned. And we catch them on the hop. We catch them unawares because they're, as I've discussed, buying real estate is emotional for people. It's stressful, it's emotional, and they're gearing themselves up. They're getting themselves all sorted. They're working out what they've got to do to be there on Saturday. They might have to get their kids babysat so that they're not there at the time when they're there, and they're, got the serious business they're going to bid. And they're getting all organised. And then all of a sudden, they get a text message from the agent saying, offer accepted, that's acceptable to the vendor. If you want to contest it, you've got to let us know. You've got to let us know by 5 o'clock tomorrow that you are going to contest it. And then you've got to come along and there's going to be this whole thing. And they go, what's happening? Because we've kind of upset their timeline on what they thought was going to happen. And we have bought quite a few properties that way where we've managed to get the vendor to look at our offer before an auction happens, and it can be generally in the week of, and people get caught unawares. And they go, and you know what it's like with people, they don't like change. So they were planning that they were going to do this through the week and then show up on Saturday and bid at auction, etc. And so all of a sudden, you're going to have to make a decision. Make a decision right now whether or not that's your property. Have you done what you needed to do? Have you actually got your contract checked? Have you actually had a building inspection done? Again, it astounds me how many people don't, but I've covered that in other podcasts. So people get sort of pulled out of their what? I don't know. And certainly it is a way. It's a tactic that I use. So where a vendor is open to, and I know what I'm doing, which helps. So you can't do it if you don't know what you're doing, because I know how to move quickly and get my foot on a deal because I know the steps, I know the ducks, I know the lineup of the ducks. I'm very familiar with all of the ducks that have to be lined up in the order and how to do it. And also what I need to do, what to put on a contract to protect the interests of my client. There's various clauses that need to be included under certain circumstances that protect my client. So you can't just go into this blindly, willy-nilly going, oh, okay, what are we doing? You got to know what you're doing. You have to actually know what you are doing. And it's how we buy real estate. And I remember a previous client, before they came to us, bit of a theme there, isn't there? Before they came to us, they had made an offer on a property that she fell in love with. And the whole argy-bargy going back and forward had started, and it caught her unawares because she's got young kids, and the whole negotiation ended up being at night. And this is very common. It's very common in real estate for negotiations to drag on into the evening. And we're talking 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night. Now, if you've got a family and you're trying to get, bed, bath, teeth, get everybody sorted, and you're trying to buy real estate, which is one of the biggest purchases that you will ever make, and you've got to concentrate on that. Plus, you've got to concentrate on getting your family sorted. You've got a lot going on. And what happened for my client at that point, before she was my client, was she basically said she had all that going on. She had the kids screaming, and it was 7 o'clock at night, and she's trying to sort everything and get the dinner and everything like that. And she just said to the agent, "Nah, too hard, sell it," because there was a whole, I think I covered this in a previous episode, but she'd been told that they were the purchaser, and next thing that they were told, no, there was someone else that was interested. I think she's misunderstood the languaging of the real estate agent, because they will say, that's exactly what I just said. If an offer comes in, they'll say it's acceptable to the vendor, and if you want to compete, well, then you can continue with the negotiations. And I reckon that was the scenario, but how it was communicated to her was obviously inadequate, because she didn't understand, and she thought that they had purchased the property, and the next thing there's someone else competing, and that obviously got her back up. But again, that's emotion. You cannot have emotion. You cannot involve emotion in buying real estate, because it will cost you. It'll either cost you money, it'll cost you time, or it'll cost you the house of your dreams. So emotion plays no part. You must not have emotion. And if you feel that you are going to get emotional, please reach out. My link's in my bio. You can reach out, and we don't clearly, I love real estate. You can tell I love real estate. I love it. But this is serious business. I do not get emotional when it's game face and when we're on, right? Do not get between me and my client. I can tell you that. Do not get between me and my client, because I'm all about getting for my client what my client wants. And if that's the house, that's what I will go and get for them. If it turns out that someone else is prepared to pay more, well, unfortunately, we'll miss out. But I'm not emotional about it at all. That is my job. My job is to buy you the house. So that's what I'll do. So it's very interesting that what the real estate agent had said. Let's go back to my client who had made an offer on the property and it wasn't accepted. And then when I've spoken to the real estate agent, they said they had 2 verbal offers, which were inside of at the top of the guide price. I went, interesting. All right. So I had a conversation with him, finished the conversation, and then basically reported back to my client and said, this is really interesting, because this is what the real estate agent has said, and there's no mention of your offer that was made. And so my clients are getting really confused, going, well, no. And she goes, I can send you the screen capture, or I can show you exactly. And I said, no. Well, I mean, clearly I believe you. I know this. I'm going to believe my client over a real estate agent, put it that way. So I said, no. So I said, okay, so just explain to me exactly. And they told me again exactly. I said, okay, that's fine. Now, I also said, we can make another offer now. Do you want to make it? And they said, yes, we love the house. We'd love to buy the house. I said, all right. So we discussed what we wanted to do and what terms we'd put forward to the agent. So I ring the real estate agent back and I said, look, we are looking to make an offer. And there's a whole process there that we go through, and every single real estate agency is different in their offer process. So asking the questions I need to ask to understand what we need to do, how we need to get things going, etc. And I said, I'm curious, because my clients said that they made an offer and they made an offer in writing. And he goes, yes, the vendor told me that there was an offer early on for whatever amount it was, and that it wasn't accepted because he wanted to go to auction. And I said, okay, but he's looking at offers now. He said, yeah, because it's later on now, it's closer, and he will, but just in the next day or so. So none of that's unusual. However, what has happened is that agent, that was the first agent that my clients met, who saw the property and then followed up with him. He left the real estate agency, and when he left the real estate agency, he didn't do the right thing by the incoming person. So he's left, and he has just left an absolute mess behind, which is extraordinarily unethical. However, not surprising in this industry. It is ruthless. So he's moved on to whatever other agency he wants to move on to, and then rather than do a proper handover to the person that's going to be the one that's now running the office and doing the sales and everything like that, he's basically said, see ya, wouldn't want to be ya, and just dumped it and run. And the agent said he was mortified. The one that I spoke to this week was absolutely, he was mortified. He was embarrassed. He's like, I can't believe it. Thank you for letting me know. I can't apologize enough. I said, that's fine. That makes sense. I said, it's fine. And I did. I said to my client, I said, look, here's what's happened. And he's mortified. He apologizes profusely about how you've been, weren't even followed up, because they weren't even followed up. It's been 3 weeks and no one's touched base with them. There's been no callbacks on them, which is highly unusual. But this guy has basically dumped and run and not even properly followed up things. And so this real estate agent is going, oh, my God, I can't believe this has happened. So now he's kind of had a piece of the puzzle fitted back into this auction campaign for this vendor. I mean, luckily for him that my clients appointed me as their advocate, because I actually got the story. And my client said, I'm so pleased we've appointed you, because you get told different information to what we get told. And I do, because I know the questions to ask. And I'm Switzerland. I'm not emotional about it, but I know how the industry works and I know the questions to ask. And so that's what's happened, that basically one of his prime buyers, who in all likelihood is going to be the one buying the property, made an offer. It was dismissed and then never had any follow-up because he didn't know about it. And it's not unusual. And I was talking to him, he said, oh, Wendy, you're not going to believe, the mess that's been left. I can believe it because I know what goes on in real estate. But pretty poor form on that person, isn't it, really? Irrespective of the industry that you're in. If you're working with clients that you don't do a proper handover because you're moving on, and for whatever reason you're moving on, it's your choice to move on. But you don't have to be snarky about it, or vindictive, or whatever word you want to include here. I mean, just being an A-hat, really, aren't you? If you're not doing the right thing in the middle of a campaign. Certainly not doing the right thing by your vendor, who is your client. It would have been still your client. Anyway, that's the real estate industry for you. So if you are in the market at the moment and need a hand because you think you're going to get emotional, you don't understand the processes, you don't want to deal with real estate agents because they can be a little prickly and tricky to deal with, then please reach out, chamberlainadvocates.com.au. We are qualified to be doing that for you. And you may be listening from other parts of the world and want to educate yourself on what's involved to get started in property, in real estate. And I have my mentoring program for you that is online, self-paced learning, step-by-step, that's going to be perfect for you. Head to getstartedinproperty.com.au and you can have a look there, and that's for you if you really do want to understand exactly what's involved to buy real estate. And it will give you the confidence to understand all of those ducks I've talked about, the ducks, what ducks there are and how you line them up. That's what's going to be there for you in my getstartedinproperty.com.au mentoring program. I've basically downloaded almost 3 decades of knowledge and industry experience for you to work through the modules at your own pace, and you're going to love it. So thanks again for tuning in. I am so appreciative of you listening. Please do share the podcast with your friends, family, colleagues. Give us a 5-star rating. We would really appreciate that if you have enjoyed listening. And as always, if you've got any burning questions or any parts of real estate that you would love me to discuss, reach out across our socials. We are across all the socials, and you can get the podcast on your favorite streaming platform. Do me a favor this week if you can. Share it with a friend and get them to tune in and listen in. And for now, that's it from me. I'll speak to you again soon. Bye-bye for now.